Greetings of peace and paradise. I am Kareem Allah Muhammad, the representative of Allah in the person of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and of his Messiah, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We're only a few weeks, perhaps a little more than a month away from the great gathering of 10-10-15, where we will join the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in the Justice or Else movement. Just this past week in Detroit, he delivered a great and really monumental speech that I would call a checkup from the neck up for all of us. We have to be mindful that millions of us who gather in Washington, D.C. on 10-10-15 are not millions of righteous people. Neither are we protesting a righteous government, because we would not be there if the government were righteous. And our communities would not be in the condition that is in if we were righteous. So in this past message by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, he made it clear that all of us stand in need of a cleansing, of a washing. And this is the objectives that we have going into 10-10-15 and even after that. There's a lot of initiatives that we have on board by the grace of Allah, but we cannot effectively and successfully achieve those initiatives unless we are cleaned up and we get rid of the filth and indecency in our minds and our hearts and in our communities. So we want to go right into this, I think, very poignant clip from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan delivered in 2007 from a lecture he titled Purification of the Heart. So please watch this.
What about those of us in leadership who call ourselves imam, minister, cardinal, president, pope, mullah, sheikh, professor? All these things that you go to school to get as a title. But did you clean? Are you clean? Listen, just listen. If this is a little boring to you and you feel tired, I will excuse you to go wash your face, because I don't want you to miss this. Because you are diseased and the doctor is in the house. All of these lofty titles and positions that we have do not forbid us from poisoning people with the diseases of our heart, no matter how pure the word may be that we speak. If the vessel out of which we speak is diseased, then the impurity of our heart begins to infect the word. So if one Christian does not like his Christian brother, one denomination feels you're better than another, one sect feels you're better than another, then when you speak, the envy, the jealousy, the hatred, the bitterness comes out in the word, and it contaminates the word. And when that word enters the ear of its hearer, the hearer of the word begins to reflect the condition of the heart that spoke that word. Have you noticed people in leadership can make people who follow them hate what they hate and love what they love and hate whom they hate and love whom they love? So if we have no love for one another and are in positions of power and authority and speak to people, let me give you an example. Most of us are guilty of gossip, slander, and backbiting. You don't know a person, but it's so easy to come out of your mouth with something that you heard. Well, you know, I read in certain magazine that so-and-so was a homosexual. And yeah. Did you have a sexual relationship? Oh, no, not me. No, I'm not that way. You know nothing about the person, but then you start repeating what you heard. So as you repeat slander, then the persons that you talk to, that you act as though you're an authority, they begin to reflect your mind. And then they start repeating, oh yeah, that person's a lesbian, this one's a homosexual, that one is guilty of this, and that one is guilty of that, as though the person speaking has no fault whatsoever. So we delight in putting each other down.
Now, brothers and sisters, all of us can agree that what we just learned makes sense. We are much aware of slander, backbiting, gossip, not dealing with actual facts because we perhaps have been victimized by such, and we have victimized others by such. Now, this is one of the greatest challenges that we have in overcoming, probably second only to fear. The challenge that we have and the problem that we have with what was just said is that some of us think it doesn't apply to us. That when he teaches and speaks, we're so eager to say that's right and to have a hand clap, but do we apply what is being said to our own selves? Do we think about, well, maybe the other day I did backbite that brother, or I did backbite that sister. Maybe the other day I did slander that brother, or I did slander that sister. Maybe the other day, or maybe today, I did lie on someone or lie to someone. So that's one of the things that we have to confront. When we talk about fearlessness, the first line of being fearless is the courage to condemn one's actions, own actions, when we know that we stand for in need of condemnation. But some of us, we don't like to confront that reality looking at the man in the mirror, because maybe the person that we are slandering, gossiping against, we don't think much of them. Well, that makes us no better than the mortal enemies of the black people and the original people of America, the synagogue of Satan, who has slandered and continues to lie and slander and backbite the original people, namely our leaders, because they don't see them as any consequence. And we are people that have been lynched and murdered and brutalized because our lives have been devalued or are not valuable in the sight of those who have control to put that over on us. So we must look at those words by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan very carefully and admit to our own selves that we have been guilty of such. That not only have we done this to other people, but we have allowed people to do that to other people while we're there witnessing it. So another line of courage is for me to be able to go pull my sister and my brother's coat and say, no, you're wrong. You're not dealing with actual facts. And why are you backbiting and slandering someone when you don't have actual facts? So we lack courage on a lot of different fronts now, for us to think that we're going to 10-10-15 to be fearless. I mean, sometimes the courage that we need to show is just in the little things of just being upfront with those that we know are in grave error or just in error, period. But because we may have some kind of position or we want to be in somebody's favor, then we don't say to them that you're in violation of the law of God, you're in violation of our standard, so you need to come and comply. Now, the Holy Quran says, or come back and comply with the law. The Holy Quran says if two brothers are at odds with each other, that we as Muslims are supposed to fight that which is wrong. That don't mean physical fight, but that means that where truth is present, and truth is always available if we want to seek it out. Then once that truth is made known, then we side with truth, not necessarily with one brother or the other brother. Depending on which one is on the side of truth, that's the one that we side with. Not to kill or harm the one that is in error, but we can't just sit by and watch injustice be done, and then we want to protest the government, against our injustices that it does to us. Now, how grave is this problem? Well, in Detroit, this past Tuesday, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan talked about the 10,000 fearless. And that fearlessness, he said, involves, among many things, going into our communities, being peacemakers, settling beefs, as he stated, getting in between bullets so that we can stop the killing of one another. We need to also do greater things or other things than that. There's much to do because there's much cleaning up to do. But the point is, it takes courage. Now, we can't stand in between a bullet as one who believes he or she is fearless if we ourselves are saddled with what brings about beefs. And what brings about beefs, most of the time, we know, is what he stated just earlier in the video clip. When we look at all of the warfare and gang violence, well, some gang violence, of course, is territorial because of the drug and the prostitution rings. But when we look at just blatant murder among us, we know that a lot of that is rooted in the fact that somebody spread a lie. Gossip has been spreading about some brother telling another brother that this other brother don't like him for some reason, or this other sister don't like this other sister. So we instigate these beefs with backbiting, gossip, lying, and slander. And then when it reaches up to the point where people now have armed themselves to murder somebody, then we think about it because we sometimes didn't think it would go that far. So the point that I'm making is that a lot of our challenges, or a lot of the scourges and the death and the mayhem we see, is because of our mouths and because we don't deal with truth and actual facts. So we can curb a lot of that when we have the law of God in front of us. And that is what we're going to be dealing with from henceforth. What is the law of God? Now, 2 weeks ago, my twin brother who lives in DC heard some gunshots outside of his home. He went outside across the street, saw a brother lying there, shot, who eventually died. He was there when the brother was alive, but because ambulance or help didn't come, and even if they did come, he was shot to the degree where he may not have survived, and he didn't survive. But people come out of their homes and there's a lot of ruckus going on. And some sister who knows that brother begin in hysteria to talk about these beefs that's going on in the community. And now we have a brother who's lying there as a victim. See, we know what's happening in our communities. We know that this street is against that street. That brother may not like that brother, but nobody stands up. I shouldn't say nobody, but we're not eager to stand up to become the peacemaker, even though we know it's a lot going on. A couple of years ago, an older woman is shot dead on her porch because the shooter's trying to hit her grandson who's running into the house. Everybody in the neighborhood knew it was something going on between them two. Well, where's the arbitrator? Where's that person that's going to step in and say, wait a minute, let's get to the root of this, because we'll find out when we get to the root of it, it's something real silly or something that can be solved with no problem at all, just bringing the parties to the table. So that's what we have to look at as we begin to come out of her, my people, as the scripture says, coming out of the decadence, the filth, the indecency, dealing with, the horrendous condition of our minds that was put on us, being under the tutelage of our former enemies, former slave masters and their children. We're coming out of that, but it takes effort and it takes discipline and it takes an application to the law of God. Now, in 2012, in Charlotte, North Carolina, at the Savior's Day Convention, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan held up this book, which is the Restrictive Law of Islam. It is the key to our success. You can obtain this book by going to finalcall.com, and every person who wants to be admitted into the kingdom of God, in the ministry of the Messiah, or of the 10,000 fearless, need to have this in your possession. We cannot think that brute force alone and arms means fearlessness. And it means that we're going to change the conditions under which we live. We need the law of God studied and applied so that we can become those saviors that the scriptures speak of, which I'll read about in a few moments. So in this book here, we have not only the law of Islam, the restrictive law of Islam, we also have rules of conduct. Now, what is the restrictive law? Well, we live in a world or in a society where everybody can do really what you want to do. And most people say, well, don't tell me what I can do what I want to do. Well, as long as we have that mentality, then we're dealing with devils that are doing whatever they want to do. A government that's doing whatever they want to do. So if I want to murder you for no justification at all, then I can do that. If I want to steal your daughter and take her and put her in a brothel, then I can do that. So that's a silly way to look at it. We want to do what God wants us to do. And by God, we don't mean religion. We mean certain laws of decency, and most of us know what those laws are. No matter what you call yourself, a Christian, a Muslim, or a Jew, I don't expect you to rob me. I don't expect you to exploit my daughter. I don't expect you to be involved in murder, rape, and all kinds of sins and indecency. And that's what I'm looking at when you say that you're such and such. I don't care about how well you sing in a choir, how well you look when you go to church, all of those things, or how you sound. Your works is what I'm interested in, because if you're living a righteous life, then that'll protect me and ensure peace in the communities where we live. So in this book, again, you have laws dealing with backbiting and gossip. We don't do that under the law of God from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It restricts our behavior so that we won't be doing anything and live free for all. We have to have restraints, and restraints is necessary in this world. So that is part of how we're going to begin to get rid of the mind of Satan that is in our minds and begin to purify our minds and our hearts. That's one aspect of it, the most critical aspect of it. Perhaps the second most is this book called How to Eat to Live. Now, these are just two keys that I'm giving you because we just can't talk about what we need to do. There's the means by which we can achieve these things if we apply. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us a physical law to support the spiritual law. He said both of them are necessary. In book 2, he says that, how to eat to live is next or second to the great spiritual teaching that we have been given. Why? Because if we're eating like pigs, then we'll act like pigs and we'll slop up filth and indecency, and then we'll spew that out. But when you live in a world like this, where you have evil scientists who controls people's behavior by what they eat, then we need to make sure we eat properly. So a few things that he said we don't eat. Number 1 is pork. Why? Because the pig is not even an animal to be consumed. It's a genetically engineered animal that serves a purpose of being, if you would, a live garbage disposal. And because it consumes poison, then it becomes some type of medicine where it is so enriched with poison, it draws other poisons out. Is an animal whose flesh attracts poison. So you have a boil, you put some of that on it. This was for the Caucasian people when they lived in the caves and hillsides of Europe. There's a whole history behind how this animal came on our planet, but it's not natural to the planet. It was genetically engineered. I'm not going to go too far into that, but it's not a food that is meant for us to eat. And because of the way it's been manufactured or grafted, what it does, it makes us act like the animal. When we consume that, we become just like that animal. As the saying goes, we are what we eat. But there's other foods that we're advised to eat, and there's foods that we're advised to stay from. So we cannot become a disciplined, fearless, God-fearing, God-minded people if we're eating all out of sorts. I think most of us understand that. And today, with obesity being epidemic, then somebody has to say something, and God has come and not only said something, but given us a prescription and a framework that we can extend our life and live much better mentally and physically and spiritually. Now, on this point, I want to say this. We cannot say we're a brother or a sister and watch other brothers and sisters struggle and not give them a helping hand in their struggles. Of late, it appears, this is what my own appearance or my own look of things over the course of 3+ decades, that is now so easy to give the gift of gab when it comes to Islam, that many of us have, made mistake Islam for pointing out the evils that white people are doing and the research that back those evils. That's not really Islam. That's part of the knowledge that we need to avoid the traps of the devil. But Islam is a way of life that gives us the way that God lives. And when Master Farrakhan Muhammad came, he introduced us to his life. So we eat 1 meal a day because the lives of those who are supreme, they eat 1 meal a day, 1 meal every other day, and so forth. So God has come and did come to share his life with us. So we in the nation of Islam in particular, and also in the churches and wherever we gather, we watch our fellow brothers and sisters struggle with weight to the point where many of them drop dead because of heart failure. And sometimes we don't say anything at all. We live with our spouses and see them going through problems and the weight mounting, and we say absolutely nothing, maybe a joke here and there, but maybe not empathizing enough or even sensitive enough to say, what's going on? How can I help you? Or brother, you don't need to be eating that right now. Let us work together so we can get back on the discipline of how to eat to live. So I watch us. I'm just gonna come straight at you, because we walk around with student ministers in the Nation of Islam. We as FOI, in security. What are we? Are we in it for the show? I'm just throwing that out there, because you're walking around being security for a brother who's extremely overweight. So overweight, any physician who looks at that brother from afar may be wondering when the heart attack is going to show up, because that's how close that brother is to having a heart attack. But do any of the brothers around him say, brother student minister, maybe we need to get together and train together? What can we do to help you drop these pounds? So we see among us fluctuations. This applies to the church. But, again, we watch ourselves each other go down the drain and don't say anything. We must stop that. And again, it takes courage for you to know that a brother who you may think is your superior, to come up to him and say, you look like you're struggling with how to eat to live. Well, that's apparent. He's struggling with how to eat to live. That don't make him not perfect. That don't make him, make him wrong or bad. We all fall short, all of us. And hopefully we'll have people who love us enough to pull our coat and bring us back to where we need to be, if we have people like that around us. But I'm asking that everyone be that kind of person. That if you see, antagonism going on, beasts developing, step in. We don't have to wait for guns to be fired and people to be murdered. We can hear through grapevines there's enough going on now. We seek out the truth. You see your brother and sister getting into physical danger because of what they eat and how they live. Why not say anything? We say, oh, well, he don't want to listen. Well, you don't know. But whether that brother wants to listen or not, you have to do, and I have to do, our duty by him. So we're hopeful that we can lose some of the pounds among the original people, Black, Native American, Hispanic, Latino, that we're mounting up. And I never did see a time where you would see Black men in particular overweight. And when you would see obesity and overweight in vogue in the nation of Islam, where to have somebody who's thin is almost like a needle in a haystack. We have to turn that around in order for us to have a healthier nation and to be what Allah has come to make us, which is gods and rulers of his eternal kingdom. So I put a period on that point. You could pick up this book, How to Eat to Live, at thefinalcall.com at the store. And for those who already have it, you can pull it out from wherever it is and do the best you can, but it's going to take focus and concentration. That's what discipline is all about. Discipline doesn't mean comfort zone, or else it wouldn't be called discipline. To be disciplined means that we have a focus of that which we're trying to achieve in the midst or among circumstances that is against what we're trying to achieve. So we have to be diligent and disciplined in order to practice how to eat to live and in order to practice the restrictive law of Islam, and make sure that we are very vocal and loving in our encouraging one another and even in our admonishing one another when that needs to be done. Now, I'm going to say we're going to move on to some more dealing with the 10,000 fearless. Now, what makes us fearless or one fearless? The Honorable Muhammad raised a question of why he stresses the religion of Islam for the so-called Negro. And in his fourth answer, he says, it removes fear and makes one fearless. It educates us into the knowledge of God in the devil, which is so necessary for my people. So again, fearlessness is rooted in knowledge, the knowledge of God, the knowledge of your environment, the knowledge of the enemy of the knowledge of the restrictive law, which is of the knowledge of God. You can't have the knowledge of God and not have knowledge of his laws and rules. But the application of those laws and rules, knowing the aim and purpose of God, and we're willing to obey and give our lives to see that purpose realized. That is the root, or that which fearlessness comes. We're fearless because we know we're with God, we're doing the things of God, and we want his will to be done, and we're willing to give our lives to see that his will is done. Now, I am going to read something, and I want you to bear with me, from this pamphlet, if you would. In that day, your righteousness shall sustain you. And that day has arrived, which is the end of the world, where the chastisement of Allah and judgment is in the house. So this material, you can go to finalcall.com to the store and purchase what is here, these books. So the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan asks us a question: whose soldiers are we? Now, I'm going to read. It's very short, so please, again, bear with me. Every nation on the earth is arming themselves to the teeth except the Nation of Islam under the guidance of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We don't need carnal weapons, meaning weapons of this world. Well, suppose they fight us, is the question somebody may raise. Well, the Holy Quran tells us never be the aggressor. And Allah hates the aggressor, and we fight with those who fight with us. And so, dear brothers and sisters, as we go through this dark hour, let no one pull you off your post. So as this dark hour comes and people are armed to the teeth, racist groups, so-called white racist groups who are armed, and even white people and black people and everybody's armed, there's weapons everywhere. We don't carry weapons. So we don't want to be influenced now to pick up a weapon when we already have a law of God that says we do not carry weapons. Again, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan made it clear that does not mean if we're fighting off an aggressor who has a weapon. If that weapon falls in it and we have access to the weapon, then we use that access and we use that weapon. But we don't carry, pack, and all of that. So for those who think the FOI is, carrying guns and weapons, then that's not the FOI under the leadership of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. You are a soldier in the army of Allah. As an FOI, it's the military training of the men who belong to Islam in North America. We need to emphasize that, because part of the training is what I just mentioned: the law of God, how to eat to live, the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That knowledge, knowing the will of God, that's part of our training in the discipline to stay the course. That's the root of the training. You don't need a lieutenant in front of you, a squad leader in front of you. Those are positions or functions we have in order to execute what the agenda, goals, and objectives are. But as an individual, if we say make all men and boys join the FOI, then it's the training that everyone has access to in your home and in your person that allows you to become just that without having to visit a mosque or a study group or any kind of building. Your home, your mind, and your own thinking transforms you by the grace of Allah gradually into a fruit of Islam. Now, he continues, well, what kind of soldier are we? Are we soldiers after the order of the soldiers of this world? where they go through learning how to shoot their various weapons, how to kill. On our Savior's Day, I quoted a scripture from the book of Nehemiah, verse 9:27, where God said he will send saviors after our people. He didn't say, I'm going to send killers after our people. He said, I'm going to send saviors after them. So the type of militancy that is in the nation of Islam is learning that when you come under the law of God, the law and rule of God, you come under his orders. Yes. And when God orders us, then it is our duty, if we are Muslims, to submit to the will of God and trust in him that he may take us successfully from point A to point B. Well, Brother Kareem, last week, some time ago, you mentioned about killing those who exploit our women, our young girls in our community. You pointed to some of the Arab stores that are doing that. You know, how does that fit in? Well, God said he will send saviors after us. And in order to save our people, we will have to kill some people. Now, that's not being the aggressor. I made it clear. If you are abducting or kidnapping one of our girls and women, or any girl and woman that we witness and know about, then why should you live? If your aim is to kidnap and rape a woman and put her in a brothel, why shouldn't that person be murdered? Because if that was his daughter or his wife, he would want the culprit killed as well. So that doesn't apply here. If I'm going to save my people and we're going to save our people, then we need to understand what the threat is and make sure that those who threaten us to abuse us and to continue to make mincemeat of us because they think that we're too ignorant to be conscious that they're abusing us, then we rise up and say, no, that's going to stop now. But you steal a woman, you steal a girl, then we will plant you into the soil. Now, and look, I did say we'll kill your families. And if it's too egregious that you're in cahoots with the U.S. government, where you're now a hired renegade army to come in and destroy us, then yes, your nation stands on a chopping block. So that is to let everybody know that if you go through with that, then their lives are at stake too. See, it's easy for somebody who don't care about us. And look, we have pictures where black people have been lynched, and it's been a picnic, a party, a cookout, serving drinks, selling whiskey, wine, and cotton candy. And everybody's smiling among the Caucasian people who carried that out. The children are smiling to see us hanging from a tree. The women are smiling to see us hanging from a tree. Well, then you are a party to that. So when you know the wrath is coming your way, through your home, clearing out your women and children, then they have a vested interest in what you do as a man. So maybe Heather will tell her husband, Bobby, you shouldn't go through with what you're going to do to the black people in that community because you put our lives at stake. That's the root of my statement. It will go that way. It will run downhill. You plan an attack on us to that level, then all bets are off, if you would. We're coming after everything that you're involved with, because you have come after everything we're involved with. Meaning our women and children in our lives as well. So that will and is ending right now. Now let's get back to this. Well, Brother Kareem, do we need guns to go in and bust down doors? We have Allah's angels with us who control weather and the forces of nature, but we are bound to go and rescue our women, and we are bound to go take vengeance on those who have kidnapped and murdered our children and our people. That's a law of God. Well, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. Well, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches when you're looking at a black man, you're looking at God. Now, again, we need to be sure of a lot of things, but I'm just making it clear. Kidnap, abduct, murder us, you will have retribution coming your way. Now, let us continue with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's guidance. And while others may look at us being unarmed, thinking that we are an easy prey, not so. When we have one guarding us, guiding us, and watching over us, who has power over all things. Now, when you come into the Nation of Islam from the military of the enemy, you know he trained you to kill. But when you come into the military of God, under the order of God, following the laws of God, obeying the rules and regulations that govern our lives, then you are being prepared by God through his Messiah to be a savior for our people. So several weeks ago, I reminded us last year, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan asked the soldiers of the various war theaters to come home to defend and help their communities. I did not say bring your weapons and teach us how to shoot. I said that you have a military discipline and a military training that if applied to some of our young people who are just reckless because they lack that discipline, then we can develop into a well-disciplined community. And that alone will enable us to achieve economic prosperity and to achieve the aims of self-independence. But you don't have to come and teach us how to shoot weapons and all of that. That's not what I was saying. And I think if you listen to the message, that will be made clear. But I did say that our communities are under assault by us as men who are just deranged and also foreigners who are coming in, and all of it is rooted in the exploitation of our girls, or earmarked for the exploitation of our girls and our women. So if you want to be one of the 10,000 fearless, your dreadlocks and your muscles, although they're well and good, it makes us look fearless and tough. Neither does a bow tie or, all of the outward. We need the knowledge of God and the knowledge of his will, that we can do his will. Now, there's much more that we'll be talking about dealing with the training that will make us better people. I'm just going to deal with this one aspect of it right now. There's much more that we have to learn. There's a whole body of knowledge that we need. So some people may be saying, well, we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to do this. Well, we need to start things first. We need to get out of the wrath of God personally and individually by acting according to the law of God and applying it to our lives. Now, I'm going to go back to the subject of our commitment to respect, to protect, and to elevate our women. That is the duty of every man walking. We live in a society that is controlled by the synagogue of Satan, that everywhere you turn is exploitation of girls and women. Everywhere you turn, our minds are being influenced to look at women and girls as commodities, as things, as objects of pleasure, and not as human beings. That's why someone can go steal a woman or kidnap a woman like they do steal a car, like they may steal a car or steal some money. So that is going to stop. And that's what I want to talk about real briefly. The chastisement of God is a grievous thing. So all of the advertisers of the synagogue of Satan, and let me just say something about white people, or to white people, not about you. Enough has already been said about you. And more probably could be said, but let me say something to you. You know, some of you you sell your soul for $1. And we're like that too. We get that sometimes because we're social engineered by your leaders to do that. But you would actually know that a certain song that you, as an executive of a music company, you would know that song is not only corrupting our girls, but you see that spilling over into your community. These songs that's late, that's just inundated with sexual content. You know it's no good for us. You know it's no good for you. You know it's no good for nobody. But because you can get a check at the end of the week, you'll let that song be played and you'll let that song go on the airways. Not even thinking that the synagogue of Satan, which has made you a slave as well, intends to keep you a slave and to make your daughters, I'm talking to Caucasian people, to look and act like sluts and whores. But for the sake of $1, and so that you can boast that you got some executive position, you'll go through with that to the detriment of your own children. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, and you ought to stand up and be a real man, like we're trying to get our people to do. But irregardless of whether you stand up or not, God has already made a stand. So we will not permit that kind of music to go forth. I don't care. We don't care. Allah doesn't care. The Messiah is not concerned with you, with your spinning rims and the claim that you got to feed your family. So you got to make, this decadent music. You're not feeding your family with that music. It don't take much for you to eat. You're doing it because you want big money, and you're doing it because you're being influenced to do it. But you should know a time is going to come where you're not going to be able to do that and say, I'm doing my own thing. That time has arrived. So the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan over the years have met with a lot of rappers, highly well-known rappers. And in my estimation, if you ask me to analyze what he has done in this Justice or Else tour, I would say that he has knighted some of these rappers to be ambassadors for the Messiah in that community, meaning the music community, the hip hop community, where now you know his thoughts, you know how he sees things, you're with him. So when he goes to the wheel and is no longer with us, then you should be able to know what he left you with and become an ambassador and say, no, we're not going to have that kind of music poisoning our communities. And to the young and up and coming rappers, you can guide them. Now, the devil can always find a taker. That's going to be our challenge. Meaning that if the older ones don't want to go along with it, he can find some new one, because he makes people that think, trifling, and also, that have that kind of mindset. But we're the original people. We can come out of that. We just need that kind of guidance. We're saviors for our people and of our people. We're not here to hurt any rapper who wants to show their talent. What we're saying is that you're not going to do it by the kind of music that we've been hearing. You're not going to do it with gangster rap. You're not going to do it with calling our women bees and all the other kinds of things that's being done now. You are not going to do it with that. So we will be confronting the music executives. We will be working with the ambassadors of the hip hop community to steer that away from our community and to smash it, annihilate it completely. But for those of you who think that you can do what you want to do and you got a little posse, I'm telling you right now, you will not be successful. Now, we're not here to harm you. We're here to make a decent community of our women and to stop the exploitation at all costs, even the cost of your own life. Because your individual life is minuscule compared to the lives that you will affect when you put some crap out there like that. So we'll ask you not to do that. But if you persist and you think you're a real thug, I guarantee you don't know what a thug is. The white man don't even know what a thug is, but he's learning real fast, because those tornadoes and the weather that's coming to America will show him and is showing him where the real power is. So I am encouraging and requiring, on behalf of Allah and His Messiah, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, for all of those who have committed their lives to Him in bringing decency among our people. I'm talking about the rappers and the entertainers. You have made a commitment. We've read it, we heard it. You will uphold your commitment if you choose to. If you don't, fine. But I think you're in the best position to help move our people forward. So I am encouraging you in his absence to continue to do that. And also to let it be known it will be done. So we can mitigate some of the suffering and some of the bloodshed if we all hold on to our commitments. So, last thing. And that goes into this last point, hypocrites. See, what I just said about those who hear and commit themselves to work with the Messiah, then you turn back on what you say you're going to do and disbelieve in it because you don't think you can eat unless you put out filth. See, that's a hypocrite. You're going back on what you said that you believed. We have hypocrites coming up everywhere. So I'm warning those hypocrites that if you try to unravel the work of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan because you dislike him and what he has done, then you will not live. That's a warning for the hypocrites. Now, I'm not talking about the Nation of Islam, members of the Nation of Islam. I'm not even referring to those close around him. I wouldn't be that childish. But some of the hypocrites are some of the ones who have power to make things better because they can do some things on a much broader scale that can help much more people. So Allah charges in the Holy Quran Jews and Christians who want to uphold the true teachings of Jesus and the true teachings of Moses. When they turn their backs, they are the hypocrites. Finally, the Nation of Islam, under my leadership on behalf of the Messiah, will no longer brandish titles. All titles are gone. I know we have student in front of student lieutenant, student captain, student minister, student protocol, student, whatever title follows student. We are now just students. No more titles at all. Now that function will continue, but it will not continue attached to a title. Also, there are no more mosques at all in the Nation of Islam. We're getting rid of all of the mosques. Numbers, everyone is a student. In any place that we gather, we're under the study of the Messiah. So we're steady groups, whether that steady group is in our homes or in the buildings that we have put our coins together to secure. Those buildings will no longer have a mosque name and a mosque number. The whole entire Nation of Islam, which in fact is the nation of the original people, are under the study of the Messiah. Now here's what we're going to study. Again, those functions will be what they are, and the channels that we have for reporting will remain. We will make some adjustments in the future. I will let you know what those adjustments are. We can talk about what is in the best interest of how we go about in the administration aspect of those. Anyone who is desirous of becoming a steady group, then you may begin to do so as soon as you choose to. 2 or 3 of you can gather. Well, what will we be studying, Brother Kareem? Well, on Sundays, there is no teaching from the rostrum at all, none. What we will do on Sundays is we will view the many messages that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan made concerning justice or else, which is very rich in guidance. And although we see it on webcasts during the week when he's speaking, we need on Sunday to invite our people out who have not heard to view those various messages. You can get together and decide what message you want to view that Sunday. But I think that we owe it to ourselves, and we certainly owe it to him to make sure that as many people hear his messages as much as possible, as many as we can. He will do the teaching on Sundays. Now, we in the Nation of Islam have our steady group classes on Wednesday and on Friday. Again, some people opt to teach on Wednesday from the rostrum, maybe a student minister, no teaching at all across the rostrum. Maybe after your study, you can talk about the affairs going on locally in your community. You can do it before or after in some kind of holdback meeting, or maybe cover it at an additional meeting if you choose to. But we are not teaching across the rostrum at all. We will be studying this book and the defense of the domestic life of the Messiah. And in the future, Allah willing, we do plan to have some type of steady guide for you to help you work through and maybe assimilate as much information as you can. But we want everybody to become proficient readers. And we want reading classes in our study groups so that we can bring our people out of illiteracy. We must become readers. God is going to reveal much in the way of literature. The book that is coming through the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is a book, which means it must be read. So we need to be proficient. It must be read so it can be applied. Reading writes on the mind. Writing writes on the heart. So we cannot get past reading and writing. We write history, then we live it. The Holy Quran says, everything great and small is written in a book. All of our lives we have come through the journey of knowledge through reading. So we must get back on that track. So we want everybody to become literate of the original people, and everybody, period, on the face of the earth. We cannot allow illiteracy and ignorance to flourish if we're going to become the people, the great people that Allah has come to make us. So that is a directive and it's a mandate. We have no more titles at all except student, brother, or sister. We have our functions, and we can make our functions clear to people so they can understand what needs to be done in order for them to work through what we're asking them to do as it pertains to that function. So I thank you for the time you have given to hear these words. May Allah continue to bless you and us as we head towards 10-10-15. Again, we are to apply the law of God to ourselves, so by the time we get there, we'll be much better in our own mind and as a group than we are right now. Assalamu alaikum.